station stop will be Manchester Piccadilly. Change for Oxford Road, Salford and Bolton.
Welcome home.
Of course, James, were you to do the decent thing, we could be on the first train back tomorrow.
Emma, is our head of chambers asking me to admit our client's guilt?
I'm not sure. I think it might be.
And do you think, in the circumstances, it would be sound practice if I sacrificed our client for the sake of his?
Absolutely not.
No.
Only trying to cheer you up.
Working alongside you, Peter, always cheers me up.
On the first count of this indictment, you, Deborah Ann Satterthwaite, are charged that on the 17th day...
The trial begins today here at Bolton Crown Court, but Deborah Satterthwaite and Mark Holmes.
On the second count of this indictment, you, Mark David Holmes, are charged that on the 17th day of November...
All persons having anything to do before my lords the Queen's Justices, draw near and give your attendance. To our Chancellor of Great Britain, our Lieutenants and Sheriffs of Counties, our Lord Chief Justice of England, our judges for the time being of our Supreme Court of Judicature, our circuit judges, and to all other persons to whom these presents shall come, greeting.
Damn silly media fuss. I'll have no playing to the gallery. Oh, I'd be grateful if you'd all consent to join me for luncheon.
Our pleasure.
I doubt it.
That judge was a bit off his trolley.
That Wizzle Carapace contains one of the most remarkable lawyers of his or any other day. It's a very great risk the jury will convict them both, you know, the way we're going about it.
I'm sorry, Peter, we agreed our tactics.
Thank you.
Right, Mr. Kavanagh.
Right, here we go then.
Deb's hasn't said anything else, has she?
Her counsel, Mr. Foxcott, hasn't told me of anything.
Bring them up!
You okay? Stick together. We'll be all right.
On the first count of this indictment, you, Deborah Ann Satterthwaite, are charged that on the 17th day of November last year, you murdered
Jurors
Kelly...
required Amanzi, Cazalet, Mishpon...
Prosecution will call in evidence the police officers who visited the scene in response to a report of disturbance.
Mark David Holmes, are charged that you murdered Kelly Satterthwaite. Court rise.
This case concerns the death of a little girl called Kelly, who was the daughter of Deborah Ann Satterthwaite and her partner Mark David Holmes. Kelly, their child, was in their sole charge that day, and Debbie Satterthwaite and Mark Holmes brutally beat her and cold-bloodedly murdered her.
Gary, get that biked up to Mr. Foxcott in Bolton, please.
Tom? Why is Peter Foxcott not available after the 26th?
Hello. Well, perhaps he thinks the trial could drag on.
Oh, David. Is Jeremy here?
I don't know how she died. I don't know anything about it.
What about the bruises? The swollen lip?
She bumped her head, I suppose. Fell out of a pushchair. I don't know.
She fell out of a pushchair and that's what killed her. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying anything.
And that was all she ever said.
That night, yes. She and Mr. Holmes issued identical statements through their solicitors the next morning.
Take us back, if you would, to your arrival at the scene.
I was called to the premises as the result of a reported disturbance. This would be 10 p.m. in the evening. Mr. Holmes answered the door. He was very wound up and reluctant to let me in. and said Miss Satterthwaite and the child were out. I heard a noise from inside the flat and insisted Mr. Holmes allow me access to the premises.
And what did you find?
I found Miss Satterthwaite in the kitchen.
How was she?
Quiet. Quite calm, I suppose. She appeared to have 2 cuts and bruising on her forehead.
She wasn't crying?
No.
Then what did you do?
I asked to see the child.
Why was that?
When I received the call from the station, they had informed me that young Kelly was on the at-risk register.
What did they say when you asked to see Kelly?
Mr. Holmes said she was sleeping. I insisted on seeing Kelly, and Mr. Holmes led us through to the child's bedroom. Miss Satterthwaite followed a little behind. The light was on, and the child was lying on her back. I approached the cot and saw a bruise on the child's temple and a swollen lip, the upper lip, I believe. I attempted to find a pulse and found none. Miss Satterthwaite became hysterical, crying and gasping for breath, and WPC Sabatowski escorted her back to the kitchen.
Did either Miss Satterthwaite or Mr. Holmes approach the bed at any time?
They did not. They stayed by the door, then went back to the kitchen.
Did either of them express any concern about her condition?
Not really.
Miss Satterthwaite was not crying when you first saw her in the kitchen.
No.
But she became hysterical when you found the child, Kelly, dead in her cot.
Yes, sir.
So it was a big shock to her.
I couldn't say.
She became hysterical, and you couldn't say if it was a big shock to her?
Well,
thank you.
How long did you question the defendants before arresting them?
Half an hour, I suppose. A bit less.
How many questions?
20.
Of which they answered how many?
About half.
So you arrested them because they failed to answer or didn't give satisfactory answers to about 10 questions.
I arrested them because I didn't like what I saw.
You didn't like what you saw?
That is correct.
You didn't like what you saw, and you didn't like Miss Satterthwaite, and you didn't like Mr. Holmes. Is that not so? There's no harm in giving an honest answer. Indeed, it's rather expected of you. Did you like them?
I wouldn't say I warmed to them exactly.
Why? Because they were unappealing? Because they didn't offer you tea and biscuits?
Mr. Kavanagh.
I could see the baby was injured.
I'm sorry, my lord. You could see the baby was injured, and you arrested them?
Yes.
Did you have any other feelings towards these two, other than dislike?
No.
Do you have a child?
No, sir.
Have you lost a child?
No, sir.
They have. They had that day. When you were asking them the 10 questions they didn't answer to your satisfaction, their child lay dead only feet away, and all you felt for them was dislike.
Stylish.
Style is something you use when you're short of substance.
Would that be a convenient moment to break for lunch? We will return at 2:15.
Now, Mr. Foxcott. There he is. That's him. Thanks. Mr. Foxcott.
It's not going to get you down, Peter. Debbie's loyal. She said she will say anything Mark wants her to. She's beyond us.
Oh, it wasn't that. Not just that.
Higher things?
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
Horrible, eh? The curried egg?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to look for something else.
I wouldn't bother. There isn't anything else.
Huh?
No.
Madam, I'm afraid you shouldn't be sitting there, on the same seat as his lordship.
What?
Madam may not be aware that his lordship is, to all intents and purposes, the person of Her Majesty the Queen while this court is in session.
Is he?
Indeed, yes. So much so that should the Queen visit Bolton during the term of this hearing, his lordship would be required to leave the court for the duration of Her Majesty's visit, on the basis that there cannot be 2 queens in the city at the same time.
I I feel a joke coming on.
I'd rather you didn't.
How's it going then?
Never looks the best when the prosecution are doing their stuff.
Thought they'd be screaming at me from the gallery. It's very calm out there, isn't it?
Yeah. Are you calm?
Well, not after 6 months inside, I'm not, no. Rule 43, that's me. Queers. People who've offended against kids and stuff, you know.
Nonsense.
Yeah, right. It's all the other cons think about. How they can get at you, no hurt you, kill you. Mr. Kavanagh, if I tell you something, can you forget I told you?
No. But you've told me everything, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
And, if you remember, you'll tell me how Debbie got the bruises on her head, won't you? Because somebody out there is going to ask, how come, if you were with Debbie and Kelly all day, Kelly ended up dead and Debbie injured, and you somehow managed not to notice how or when any of it happened?
It were on and off all day. In the end, my husband went round and spoke to Mr. Holmes there. He was trying to get football scores and the din were terrible. So it were, just about 5 o'clock.
Can you describe the din?
Shouting. Mr. Holmes, mostly. Little Kelly crying. Debbie crying and shouting too.
Did they go quiet again after your husband spoke to Mr. Holmes?
There were Kelly crying about 6. My husband said he'd go round and knock Holmes' head off if it got worse, but it stopped. Then later, there were terrible screaming and shouting. I thought he were hurting Debbie or something. I were worried for her. That's when I called the police.
And when would that be?
Sometime around 10, I suppose.
No questions.
Mrs. Bell, how long have you lived next door to Debbie and Mark?
They moved in 2 years back. Bit less. When she fell pregnant with little Kelly.
Did you ever babysit for them?
I had a job. They're the ones that had the time, lolloping around all day doing the drugs and...
Mrs. Bell, I didn't ask you that.
No, but I'm telling you.
Mrs. Bell, please.
I'm sorry, but it upsets me. People like that, hurting an innocent little...
Mrs. Bell, if you do not control yourself, I will have you removed from the witness box. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Your husband has 3 convictions for burglary, 2 for assault.
I don't see what that's...
Are you enjoying being able to point the finger for a change instead of being pointed at?
Mr. Kavanagh.
Not so stylish.
No, let's hope we find something more substantial later.
Shall I meet you there?
No, come along with me now, you might as well. Come on. Dad likes people dropping in.
Well, I might want to talk to you about, personal stuff.
No, we did all that at the funeral. No, it's this case of ours I want to go on about.
I've been reading about you. Ugly thing.
The modern royalty?
Oh, it happened in the old days as well, you know. But I think we'd have dealt with it differently.
Lynched them, you mean?
No, we'd have taken it personally. Like it were our responsibility, like we'd let them down, maybe. It's all very easy to point the finger, you know. No, it's true.
Yeah, no, that's what I said in court today.
We didn't waste all our breath then. Doesn't get any easier, does it, son? The more you miss somebody, the better it must have been. That doesn't help the loneliness, does it?
Dad, you're welcome to come and live with me in London, you know.
Of course. And you're just as welcome to come here and live with me.
He's all right.
Good. Look, James. Shall we?
Yeah. Yeah, never expected. It's closer than I thought.
Have you seen Mr. Alder, Martin?
Oh, God, it was you who had his arch bone. You'll have your bollocks, sir.
Where is he?
I believe he went into Mr. Foxcott's room. Come.
Ah,
I'm sorry, Mr. Alder, Martin. I forgot to had it.
don't worry. It's Henry, isn't it? Don't worry, Henry. Anytime.
You're not enjoying this much, are you?
It's not much of a homecoming. This is where I was born. 24.
1924?
No. And that was Alice's. Well, it looks different somehow.
That's because you were down here.
Oh, yeah, right.
No, Kavanagh, you can't have anything on tick, you rich bastard.
Dick. Dick Ellis, you're looking well.
Well, you're looking better. You visiting your dad?
Yeah, and the scene of the crime.
Oh, that. Well, I'd say good luck to you, but I'd see him hang.
Wait! I really will give you a clout if you keep on enough now. So wait there. Come on, careful. This way, come on. Will you come here?
It's this place Dick Ellis hates. The look of it. The fear of it. Not them. David probably bought fags in his shop. He'd probably smile at her, handing over the change. Dick's probably never been up there in his life. They're his neighbours, these people, and he's terrified of them. Whoever built this place, they ought to come up here and see, not feel what it's done to people. Typical, down the other end.
Here they are.
James Kavanagh, Emma Taylor, Mark Holmes' defence counsel.
Whoever's responsible for the four walls, you can't blame them for what happened in here.
No. No, and I do know what Dick Ellis means. You need someone to blame.
I don't. I'm playing a part in a process that hopes to establish truth. After that, punishment, redemption, understanding, whatever. I'm not ashamed.
You're like a breath of fresh air.
And you're a patronising old so-and-so. And you think I'm naive.
Well, as far as the truth goes, I think you are. Because our job in this is to get our client off. For better or worse, the truth is probably the last thing we'll be trying to find. There are times when the best you can do is to create a fog. What a life. Television and fags. Instant coffee and pot noodles.
I didn't know you were a snob.
I just can't stand emptiness. A generation later and I could have been up here.
Cue Hovis music. A generation earlier and they could have been down there with rickets and no shoes. The good old days. Is there no chance of proving them innocent?
Well, I suppose Mrs. Bell, the neighbour, could have leapt from her balcony onto theirs and murdered Kelly herself.
Just fog, then.
Well, if we're to speak for them, it helps to know them, but these two, no trace. Hardly anything of her, and nothing of him. It's as if they barely existed. A lonely woman with no interests or diversions, buying the company of a pathetic boy with sex.
Wow. Here's the interest. I can't believe it happened here.
Well, someone really loved that child.
Maybe he did?
I bet she took the picture and framed it and looked at it. Yeah, this is where it happened, all right. Where Debbie dreamed of having a proper old-fashioned family. What's the point of playing an all-rounder if you don't bowl him at all?
I'm gonna go up. See you in the morning.
All right, good night. James, at last, you joined me. Not tonight, it's been a long day. You should have joined us. At the flat, I mean. There's a few things I could tell you about your client. Well, feelings more than facts, I admit.
My client? I stand accused of neglect.
I'm not accusing. Well, it's just that Debbie looked to have been a loving mother, from what I could tell. It might not do a great deal for my case, but it could certainly help yours. What is it, Peter?
There was something I was hoping to share with you, actually, James, but now is not the time. One too many. On the train, perhaps, away from all this.
When exactly did the bells begin to ring, Mrs. Bott?
When the hospital contacted us. With consideration to the pregnancy, Debbie had been asked if she was a drug user. If that proves to be the case, they let us at social services know about it.
Now, you referred to Debbie openly using drugs.
There was some complaint from the maternity ward that she was injecting heroin in full view of the other mothers.
And some complaint about Mr. Holmes?
Yes, he was felt to be intoxicated and offensive when visiting. On 2 occasions.
That you know of?
Indeed.
As child protection officer, you were called to their home?
Yes. I found Kelly to have some bumps and bruises and to be rather weakly and slow in development.
What action did you take?
A doctor looked at Kelly and agreed with our worries, but also said there was no real indication of non-accidental injury.
But he did support your calling of a case conference and the putting of Kelly on the at-risk register.
Child protection register, yes.
The parents were invited to this conference. Did they go?
Debbie came, not Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, Mrs. Bott.
Mrs. Bott, you came to know Debbie well over the course of your involvement with her.
Yes,
Did you think she was a loving mother?
absolutely.
Thank you.
Steady, what's it playing at?
Bad work day. Looks as if you have to create all the fog yourself.
Reading through the notes of the case conference, I see that you were strongly opposed to Kelly being taken away from Debbie and Mark. Why was that?
You can't take a child away because you don't like the look of the parents. It's important to give parents the chance to develop parenting skills and adopt parental responsibility.
I see. In fact, the involvement of the social services, however well meant, was rather piecemeal, was it not?
How do you mean?
You were away on holiday when Kelly died?
Yes.
And you were away at retraining the fortnight before when you were scheduled to visit?
Yes.
When was your last visit to Kelly before she died?
5 weeks previously.
And before that?
4 weeks.
So you visited Kelly twice in the last 3 months of her life?
Yes.
How many other clients do you have, approximately?
60.
60. You can't really pretend to be a substitute for a parent, can you?
No.
But you can undermine the real parents by giving a sense that you are a substitute.
Yes, I'm afraid that...
Mark and Debbie were already on your files. Would you tell us why, please?
Debbie was taken into care when she was 8 and lived in various homes run by our department until she was 16. Mark was also in care from 12 to 16.
Did they have family?
Debbie's mother died when she was 8. The father was unknown. Mark's mother, I believe, is still alive.
But handed him over to you when he was 12?
Before that, he was in foster homes from 6 or 7, I believe.
And nobody wanted to foster them?
There were attempts, but no.
With fostering, as in life, indeed as in court, it's quite a disadvantage if people don't like you, isn't it?
Sadly, yes.
Before they scrapped the right to silence, defendants in cases like this didn't have to go into the witness box. Out on appeal in dual will, won't they?
It's quite possibly. We've got the impartial expert to deal with first, though. Be warned, this may not be at all stylish.
It would be safe to conclude that a spectrum of abuse had taken place over a period of time. For instance, there are small fingertip, fingernail-type bruises to the upper arms and around the rib cage. There are healing fractured ribs, here, here, and here. There are small subdural hemorrhages, here, here, and here. Those 3 findings give clear indications of vigorous, violent shaking.
Enough to cause death?
Probably not. However, there are 2 larger subarachnoid hemorrhages, here and here, which correlate directly with bruises to the outside of the skull, caused by 2 quite substantial blows to the infant's head.
Potentially fatal?
I would say so.
If a child falls out of a pushchair and bangs its head, this can cause subarachnoid hemorrhage. Is that so?
I suppose so. However, a blow of that kind would be quite obvious to a parent, as it would usually present quickly and lead to unconsciousness or death in a very short period.
If a parent holding a child while coming down the stairs, say, and the child wriggles and the parent grabs the child in a frantic attempt to prevent it falling, this can cause fingernail bruising. Is that not so?
This is better.
Yes.
In fact, all the injuries could have happened accidentally.
No. And I'm glad you raised this. The only injury that was certainly not accidental was the bruising to the gums, a certain amount of blanching which could only have been caused by sustained pressure.
Yes, well...
I had initially attributed these to clumsy or desperate attempts at mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
Dr. Jardine.
Let Dr. Jardine finish, Mr. Foxcott.
But, looking through my notes this morning, I could find no reports from any of the attendant authorities indicating that anyone gave mouth-to-mouth. So, in combination with the various petechiae found in the eyes and behind the heart and lungs, and some damage to the pharynx, another conclusion can quite reasonably be drawn.
Which is, in English?
The child may well have been asphyxiated, suffocated.
But you still cannot tell us with certainty what caused Kelly's death.
I can tell you with certainty that it was either the blows to the head or suffocation or a combination of the two.
Thank you.
Dr. Jardine, do you rule out any other possible cause of death?
Unless presented with new information.
Sudden infant death syndrome, cot death, can show similar post-mortem features to the ones you describe for asphyxia, can't it?
It can, but it can't show fractured rib, brain hemorrhaging, and general bruising elements.
Dr. Jardine, are you being paid to appear as a witness?
Yes.
How much and who by?
Mr. Kavanagh, this is utterly unprofessional. I should not have to remind you that Dr. Jardine, whoever calls him, is a witness to this court, not to either side.
I am sorry, my lord. I must apologize, Dr. Jardine. I overlooked your impartiality for a moment. You dismiss cot death on the grounds that Kelly had various bumps and bruises, is that so?
I reject cot death or SIDS on the basis that the infant died of brain hemorrhage or asphyxiation.
But when I referred to SIDS earlier, you countered my suggestion by referring to external wounds.
Yes.
Are you suggesting that a child who is hurt during the day, by whatever means, accidental or non-accidental, is not vulnerable to cot death at night? That only children who are bruise-free are susceptible to cot death?
Mr. Kavanagh, Dr. Jardine has told you that the child did not die from cot death because he is certain that it died from brain hemorrhage or asphyxiation.
It? No more questions.
That concludes the case for the prosecution, my lord.
Are you okay?
I'm one of a parade of overdressed fools dancing around a child's death. Apart from that, I'm fine.
It upsets me too.
I actually know nothing of the worlds these people come from. I thought I saw something in Debbie's flat, something I knew, but it's all changed. It's all dead. My childhood was a Hovis commercial, as you so rightly pointed out. Right. What were you getting excited about out there?
Is he saying she was suffocated?
If by he you mean the doctor, then yes, that's exactly what he's saying.
Right. Well, something I've got to tell you then. See, I did have a go at times, and one time, early that afternoon, I did drop her. But it were an accident. But I was scared. I mean, well, that could have been it. Well, no one's going to see it as an accident. So I lied. But I didn't suffocate her. See, she was still alive when I went out. And when I came back,
Went out? You said you were both in all day.
Yeah, right. Well, I went out, and Kelly was alive. And when I came back, she was dead. So it couldn't have been me, could it? Eh? I mean, that doctor said she'd die, like, quickly, after her head visit. But she didn't, did she? Mrs. Bell had her crying at 6. That's like half an hour after I went out. So I think you should say that.
Let's just get this straight. You did fracture her ribs. You bruised her. So much so that you thought you'd nearly killed her. You persuaded Debbie to lie, just like you were lying, in the hope of sharing the blame with her. And now you want us to believe your new story and change your defence. Just like that.
Yeah, well, there's no point in me going down as well as her if I didn't do it.
Where did you go?
I was out with girlfriends. Her husband was away, so I went round to see her. You know. That's why Debs and me were fighting. My girlfriend won't like it, but well, she's an alibi.
I don't know if I can continue to represent you, Mr. Holmes. Emma. There's a certain irony in defending someone I gladly throttle with my bare hands.
And will you? Continue to defend him?
Will you? You have the choice too.
Yeah. I defend anyone, whatever they've done, however unpleasant they are. That's what I've worked for.
It's going to be ugly, you know that. Tomorrow Debbie goes into the witness box. She will carry on, blithely, as if she and him are still in cahoots. She will then walk straight into our ambush. And her only protection is Peter Foxcott, who doesn't appear to be with us this week. And we have absolutely no option but to ambush him too. Right. If you're telling me the truth, and not just abusing the law to suit your purposes, we will continue to represent you.
Thanks.
Right, tell me what you found when you came back at 10 that night.
No, it's still not working. Send an engineer over.
I'd just like to say that everybody in Chambers is invited to a summer party at my place in the country. Clerks included. Hey, would you hand these round, please?
Why? I mean, why the party?
Summer equinox.
Fair enough, if you sort of mind.
James, Emma, good morning. Maybe he's keeping something from us.
If it makes you feel better. Sorry. I suppose he might have got Debbie to turn on Mark.
Possibly. Cutthroat versus cutthroat.
Debbie, you are charged with the murder of your daughter, Kelly. Did you kill her?
No.
Speak up, Miss Satterthwaite, please.
No.
Did you hit her?
No.
Do you know where the bruises came from?
No.
You do recall Kelly toppling from her pushchair that day?
Yes.
With a bump?
Yes.
From which the bruises might have come?
Oh, see, yes.
And when she fell from the pushchair, was there a bump?
Yes.
Where?
On her head.
And what did you do to her when she had this bump?
What do you mean?
Did you pick her up and comfort her?
My lord. Mr. Foxcott, don't lead the witness.
I'm sorry, my lord. When she fell from the pushchair, what did you do?
I picked her up and comforted her.
You were her mother,
Yes.
and you loved her.
Yes.
You loved her, and she was your responsibility.
Yeah, but it weren't my fault. I didn't do it, any of it. I didn't kill her. It weren't my fault.
That she fell from her pushchair.
Any of it.
Debbie...
Miss Satterthwaite, you said any of it. Any of what?
Perhaps if I made it a little clearer.
It's quite clear enough. Thank you, Mr. Foxcott. Any of what was not your fault?
In terms of your sense of responsibility.
Mr. Foxcott, please let the witness answer my question.
Are you all right, Debbie?
Can I go to the toilet?
I wonder, my lord, if Miss Satterthwaite might be allowed a few moments to go to the lavatory.
The lavatory?
Yes, my lord.
Does she have an unusually small bladder?
I don't know, my lord.
Perhaps you might ask her. Then she must be expected to endure, like the rest of us. I propose to finish at 3 o'clock today, which, it being Friday, will no doubt please the jury. Now, when you are restored, Miss Satterthwaite, I would like you to tell this court what you mean by any of it.
Kelly falling out of a pushchair and dying.
What you're actually saying...
My lord, he's leading.
Just a moment.
Did you kill Kelly?
No.
What? Where was I?
Now, Debbie, you and Mark were together all that day. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did either of you hurt Kelly in any way?
Apart from the pushchair.
I don't believe it's in dispute that the fall from the pushchair was an accident.
I should say everything his client says was in doubt if I were Mr. Foxcott.
Was the fall from the pushchair an accident, Kelly? Debbie, Miss Satterthwaite.
Yes.
I've never had to do this to Peter before.
Go behind his back.
I hope you're good at changing the subject.
I'll do my best. What'll you do with Debbie on Monday? I mean, you've got to go for the jugular, haven't you?
Well, those are roughly our instructions.
I kept you a seat. I wonder if you were getting a later train or something.
Something came up.
That was a mistake today. The kind that makes me think I'm not the lawyer I used to be. Or at least not the advocate.
It wasn't great, Peter.
Thank you, James, for that heartfelt condolence. Didn't realize Emma was going to be with us.
I could always...
No, my dear. We could talk later? At least she never actually said she was guilty. Some doubt still lingers.
Peter, we can't discuss this.
Are we discussing it? Or am I just unloading a day's aggravation with a colleague and friend?
We are in danger of discussing it.
And why would that be such an unprecedented event? We've been discussing it since we first had the briefs. He's changed instructions. And now it's cutthroat? And I've hung her out there to dry. Or for you to lacerate to your client's ends on Monday morning.
I can't discuss this.
And the beauty of it is I can't even warn her that cuddly old Kavanagh is a snake in the grass, because she's in the middle of giving evidence and nobody can speak to her. You're a two-faced bastard!
This is your senior student speaking. We'd just like to remind you that the buffet car is still open, serving snacks, hot and cold beverages and refreshments.
He's drinking too much.
Do you think that's why he's off his game at the moment?
I don't know.
He wanted to talk to you privately. You don't think he's ill?
Beverage? Refreshment? One of each, please, steward.
Senior steward, actually.
James, Emma.
Jeremy?
Home from the hinterland. El Vino and then dinner at the Ivy. On me? You coming?
Well, you go. You need a break from the hinterland.
Yeah, I do. Okay, I'll come.
Good.
Not me.
Come on, troops. After you.
Gary?
Sir? Mr. Kavanagh? Tom Buckley thought you should see this. Mr. Foxcott.
Not available.
Mr. Kavanagh.
Oh!
That's on the back. I'll get it.
All right, thanks. Hello, Mr. Kavanagh. Tom. I'm sorry to disturb you on a weekend.
Nonsense. You saved me having to get hold of you.
What were you going to?
So,
That bad, eh?
that bad for both of us.
This is wonderful, Tom.
Well, I've always had a bit of a fancy for you to see it, Mr. Kavanagh. You ought to be honoured, mind. You're the first lawyer who's been here in 3 generations.
You've had 3 generations in Chambers?
No, 5, but we've only lived here for 3.
Only?
There were 2 generations of Buckleys in Chambers before Grandpa Buckley, but he was the first senior clerk, and he bought this place in 1921.
Old money, Tom.
well, I did make it to public school like my boys, but I do put on the accent along with the red braces as the train goes through Bromley South. No, I mean, I don't think Mr. Aldermarty could hack it otherwise.
I think you'd choke on this.
Yeah, and he'd take me off commission, put me on a salary, and halve my income.
And many other worse things, if you were to become head of Chambers.
Which is why we're here, to stop him. Because you won't stand, will you? Thought not. Well, the only alternative is to prevent Mr. Foxcott from taking a judgeship. Could you imagine Chambers with Aldermarty as the governor?
No. And I can't imagine Peter on the bench. Sets you apart, Tom. Makes you the ref instead of one of the players. Puts you in an ivory tower. I think that's what's preying on his mind.
Well?
I'll work on Peter. And you, I imagine, will have some fun torpedoing the good ship Aldermarty.
Tom, where am I tomorrow?
Mould, sir.
Mould?
This is to be heard in Mould.
What the hell is Mould?
Wales, sir.
It's North Wales, isn't it?
Oh, but I can't. I've already accepted it on your behalf, sir. But it's a nice little earner.
I gave his lordship a message.
And?
He hasn't got time to talk to you now. He's sitting in 10 minutes. Court prize.
My lord, I renew my application to see your lordship in your lordship's chambers.
No.
Your lordship will know that...
No.
My lord...
I warn you to be careful, Mr. Foxcott.
My lord, my client is about to be ambushed from an unexpected quarter.
Do you wish me to call security?
I mean in cross-examination, my lord.
Which may lead to our being faced with some very awkward questions.
Indeed, my lord.
Would it surprise you, Mr. Foxcott, to learn that the whole point of cross-examination is to test witnesses?
My lord.
And that it would be quite wrong of counsel to attempt to warn witnesses in advance. Mr. Kavanagh.
Miss Satterthwaite, can you confirm that Mark Holmes did not hurt Kelly at any time?
No, I didn't hurt her.
Did he hurt you?
No.
And all the time he was at the flat that day, you were with him?
Yes.
Was he ever alone with Kelly?
No.
Debbie, how did you first meet Mark Holmes?
On the estate?
Did he live there too?
No, he'd been kicked out.
By friends?
My girlfriend.
So he was looking for someone new?
Yeah. Well, they were looking for a squat.
But instead, he got to know you?
Yeah.
And he moved in? Did you get on well?
Oh, yeah. Knew where we were coming from.
After all, your backgrounds were similar. And how soon after this did you become pregnant?
A month or so.
Did you tell Mark?
Not straight away.
Why was that?
Dunno.
Were you worried?
Might have been.
Worried he wouldn't like the child? You were right to be worried, weren't you, Debbie?
Suppose.
Mark didn't want that baby, did he? But you did. You wanted a family. Was there ever anyone else, Debbie? Anyone else you might have settled down with? Mark was the only one you thought of as a partner, then? Mark was a good father, wasn't he?
Yes.
He loved Kelly.
Yes.
He wasn't exactly a modern father. He didn't change her nappies or put her to bed and things like that.
No.
And you put Kelly to bed that day, as usual, on your own.
Yes, I did.
What time would that have been? Was it, say, sometime after 6?
Yes.
And sometime after that, she got the bump on her head?
Did she?
Did she fall out of her pushchair after 6 o'clock?
Oh, yes. She woke up and I put her in a pushchair and she fell over.
After 6 o'clock?
Yes.
And what did you do with her then?
Put back to bed.
And she stayed in bed?
Yeah.
Until Mark came back?
Yeah.
Because Mark went out just after 5, didn't he? And you put Kelly to bed, and when Mark got back at 10, Kelly was dead, wasn't she?
Please answer Miss Satterthwaite.
Yes.
Thank you. Why did Mark go out, Debbie?
Don't know.
The noise that Mrs. Bell heard at around 5, what were you arguing about?
Nothing.
Was there anyone else that Mark might have settled down with? Were you his only partner? Was Kelly crying after Mark left? What were you doing? Crying too? Why were you crying?
All over, wasn't it? He hurt me.
Hurt, as in upset. You said he didn't hit you.
No, hurt, upset.
So the bump on your head, you did that yourself? To make people think he'd hurt you?
No, it were an accident.
Were you holding Kelly when you banged your head?
Yes.
Did you hit her head?
Might have done.
Your heads might have banged together.
Might have.
Was Kelly still crying?
Yes.
Had you ever hurt her before?
No.
So what did you do next?
I thought she's better off without me.
Better off without you. So what did you do?
I put her to bed.
But you didn't just lay her down, did you? You stayed by her side. Did you put anything over her mouth, Debbie? Your hand? A pillow? What did you do to her, Debbie?
I just put her to bed.
No more questions.
You had me worried for a minute. Don't go to stand next.
I would advise not.
Why?
Because she said enough. And whatever facts the jury may have heard, they remain susceptible to likes and dislikes.
I'll leave you to it.
I'll see you in the morning.
James?
Peter?
Come to comfort me, have you? Think I'm depressed? Do you think I ought to be depressed?
You tell me.
My client's guilty. I'm not sure I need to take it personally.
If you've done your best.
I'm too old for encounter groups. If I just tell you you were marvellous, will you leave me alone?
It wasn't marvellous. I protected a pathetic young man who probably did hurt that child in the past. And should be punished for it.
You got her to say she did it. Near as damn it. It's too late and no use anyway to change to guilty. I can't run diminished responsibilities since I'm called a medic. No defence.
Mitigation, then. Help the judge and jury to understand why it happened. To understand Debbie.
But I don't understand her.
You understand loneliness. That's what you're afraid of, isn't it? Because you know how lonely life can be if you go on the bench.
Does everybody know? What does everybody think?
Well, apart from Jeremy, who's launched a full-scale Alder Martin for head of Chambers campaign, we all want you to turn it down.
Does everybody know this is the third time I've been asked? And if I don't accept by Monday, I'll never be asked again. And if I do accept and stay alive for a year, I'll probably get a knighthood. This was meant to be my goal in life.
So what's the problem?
Do you see me playing God? Splendid isolation in the judge's lodgings. As you say, death could hardly be more lonely. I'm terrified of it, James.
More to the point, you'll not be doing what you came here for. And that's to give people a voice. Whatever you decide to do, don't walk away without speaking up for her, Peter. If you think she killed that child, help us to understand why. You've got to take that jury by the hand and lead them to a life. On the 11th floor, with no mother, and no father, and a lover who goes out to spend his afternoons in bed with another woman. You have to help people to understand how that girl could lean over the side of a cart and stifle the life out of the only thing she has in the world.
If you believe someone has killed, you have two options. You can find the defendant guilty of murder if you feel the act was premeditated. But you can also find manslaughter if you consider the defendant was in some way provoked. This if things were done or said or happened that, in your opinion, were enough to make a reasonable man or woman lose control. I suggest to you there is provocation in a child's cry, an accusation of futility and of failure, a cry that pierces the heart. And is there not something as provoking in loneliness, having no mother, no father, nobody? We've all taken a battering during this experience, and none more than Debbie. Yet we all have someone to go to share our pain and confusion, someone to comfort us and put us right. Not Debbie. She had no one, except Mark Holmes. Parents are responsible for their children. Similarly, society is responsible for the generations it spawns. Yet we ignore and despise people like Debbie, who are alone and lonely and needful, and we fail them. To be a mother, you need to be mothered. To be a lover, you have to be loved. Yet Debbie, with no experience of either, loved and mothered that child. Nobody has given us one example of Debbie being cruel or impatient or even inattentive to that child. Quite the reverse. So how could she kill her? Why? To win back Mark Holmes, who might have been driven from the house by Kelly's screaming? Or to spare her precious child from the pattern of pain and anguish that have constituted Debbie's own life? She's better off without me. She is alone, and alone one's judgment goes. Alone one's reason goes. Alone one's sense of responsibility diminishes until it too is gone. We're also on trial here. We have the chance to show Debbie the real face of her community. Is it a face of vengeance and spite and intolerance? Or is it a face of compassion and humility and a desire to understand and to forgive and to restore?
Is it a clinker summer? I can hear the garden drinking it.
You have some of the strawberries, they're really lovely. Excuse me. Excuse me. Hello. Some more? Okay. Excuse me, please. Excuse me. Tom.
It's magnificent, Mr. Alderman.
Oh, thank you. Where do you live, Tom?
Oh, I'm probably by here.
Never mind.
Jeremy, I wondered if it might be appropriate for me to say a few words to everyone.
Of course. Absolutely. Well, perfect. I think the moment is right. Excuse me. Excuse me. Friends. Not Romans. Chambermaids and mensch. First of all, I'd like to say what a great pleasure it is to have all you very dear friends here at my modest home. And I hope there's enough of everything. And now I call upon our pater familias, who has something he would like to say to you.
This community of friends has been the backbone of my life. My recent experience has confirmed this. So, having reflected at length, next Monday, after the verdict in Bolton, I shall be returning to River Court. Nothing I might be offered could persuade me otherwise. I shall continue to serve you as head of chambers for many, many years to come. So I propose a toast to our generous host, Jeremy.
I'm out of champagne.
I think there's some there. Ooh. Very generous of you, Jeremy. This must have knocked you back 60 quid a bottle.
Over 70.
£76.99p, actually. Oh.
the defendants please stand? Will your foreman please rise? Madam Foreman, have the members of the jury reached a verdict on which they are all agreed?
Yes.
On the first count, do you find Deborah Ann Satterthwaite guilty or not guilty of the murder of Kelly Satterthwaite?
Guilty.
On the second count, do you find Mark Holmes guilty or not guilty on the charge of murder?
Not guilty.
And that is the verdict of you all?
It is.
Mark Holmes, you are legally innocent and free to go.
Not now. Thanks.
Before you pass sentence on Miss Satterthwaite, my lord, if we might ask for reports.
Thank you, Mr. Foxcott. You acted quite correctly in finding Miss Satterthwaite guilty on the charge of murder. However, this court is not deaf. And although Mr. Foxcott's closing comments had little basis in law, they have a firm root in humanity. It is my feeling that Miss Satterthwaite has suffered enough. I will therefore make my feelings known in my submission to the Home Secretary and recommend that she serve the minimum sentence. I hope that with some help and some courage, Miss Satterthwaite, you will be lucky enough to find a little happiness on your return to society, however that society may have served you up to now.
He gets a police escort, the best car, and he gets the last line.
Oh, no, you don't.
We still need you, Peter.